Hello, and welcome to the PM Mastermind. Thanks for joining us. This is a community for PMs to get advice, share advice, and build relationships. Today, we're hosting a special session on networking as a PM, what makes it important, and what you need to do to get better at it. We'll start with some initial questions for our guest, who we'll introduce shortly. And then we'll move into some questions from our community that were submitted ahead of time. And then we'll close out with a fun rapid fire round. But before we jump in, we're going to do some quick intros. My name's Felix. I am currently a product manager at Google focused on subscriptions growth. And I've been a PM for about 5 years. Previous to that, I was an engineer for 5 years and used an MBA to pivot. I started this community because it really unlocked a lot of growth for me when I started connecting with other PMs, learning from them, sharing my best practices, getting best practices from others. And I wanted to help other PMs do the same thing. And, slowly but surely, we built a little community on online that is doing just that. So super excited to speak with you all today and, keep sharing these tips to help everyone grow. Akshaya, hand it off to you next.
Thank you, Felix. Hey, everyone. I'm Akshaya, currently a PM at Wish, working on ML-based content understanding solutions for the supply side of the marketplace. Similar to Felix, I joined this community primarily to meet a lot of other PMs, network with them, and of course, try and understand how best to kind of level up my skill sets and grow in my PM career. Networking is a topic close to my heart. I love writing about it, and I'm very, very excited to be speaking about it with our guest today. And I'll pass it over to Jayan.
Hey guys, really excited for this conversation. I'm Janth. I'm a product manager at Capital One focused on risk and fraud detection on our enterprise identity platform. Just like Felix, really wanted to help build this community and have it be the resource that I wish I had in my first 2 years as a product manager. And also have a ex-engineering background, like other folks on this call, have a computer science degree and pivoted into product management through a human-computer interaction or UX research degree.
All right, and our special guest today is Diego Granados. Diego is a PM expert. I think a lot of you may have heard of him through a lot of his YouTube content online. He's been a PM at companies like Cisco, Microsoft, and right now he's tackling AI and ML at PayPal. As I mentioned before, he is a content creator, and of course, he has a ton of useful videos about interviewing as a PM, tuning up your resume as a PM, and with a lot of other PM leaders at different companies. So you should definitely check those out. Welcome, Diego. Want to do a quick intro from your end?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you said it all, but it's always a pleasure to be here. One of those experts on my channel, by the way, is Felix. So you should definitely check out his video. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be around.
Awesome. Diego, thanks again for joining us. Let's jump into some of the questions that we have for you over the next 20 or 30 minutes, and then we'll jump into some questions that were submitted by the PM Mastermind community on LinkedIn. So to kick things off, how has networking played a role in your career growth as a product manager?
I think it has been one of the most important things in my career as a product manager. When I began my journey into product management, it's one of those things that you are overwhelmed by everything that you need to do on your first few months and your first year. And I remember that one of the things that my boss at the time recommended was like, don't just get to meet people around you, people in the team. Start expanding your network, start getting to know people outside of your network, even outside of Cisco. He was like, just meet people, spend the first 3 or 6 months of your time as a product manager, just, booking 30-minute sessions with others. And this paid off in the end because as I was meeting, not only my team, of course, but others around me, other teams at Cisco, which was my first PM role, many of those that I ended up meeting, I ended up working with, after a couple years. And what ended up happening is we already knew each other. There was already a relationship built. And that was key for me to be able to be successful in my product projects. Just to close it up, that eventually, of course, expanded into the more people I met in my network as a product manager, the more PMs I met. Some of them ended up jumping to different companies that then I interviewed with. Some of them I ended up working with. And so that is to say, I think when I did my MBA, they taught us about networking to get an offer. And I think networking doesn't stop ever. And it's something that you should prioritize. because it's fun to meet people, but also because you never know when you're going to see them again, or help them or reach out for help.
I love that, especially because you pointed out a really interesting aspect of networking, which is it doesn't always pay off immediately. So, what advice do you have for the PMs listening now that are looking at their calendar? Like, I have no idea how I'm going to meet other people with everything I have to do. How do they balance the daily responsibilities with, the importance of networking?
It is always going to be challenging. It is always going to be really hard to get 30 minutes on your calendar. But let me tell you at least one story of something that happened. I ended up meeting someone at the early stages of my career as a product manager at Cisco. And I met this person. He used to work at Microsoft, and I met him through random coffee chats. A friend of a friend connected me, and it was not even about work. I was just meeting other product managers. When I wanted to move out of Cisco, I ended up reaching out to this person. And long story short, after a few conversations, he was like, "Hey, I want to bring it to Microsoft," and that was a good entry point for me to do that. When I saw that happening, what I decided to do on my calendars as soon as I started Microsoft, and I realized the power of networking, I always blocked two things on my calendar all the time. One was my lunch hours. At Cisco, I realized that I missed my lunch hours if I didn't block them. And the second thing is I would book 30 minutes either before or after to use it as an excuse that it was still my lunch. But in reality, that 30 minutes before or after my lunch were dedicated to networking at least once a week. I would try to do it more often, but at least once a week, I would try to schedule a meeting with someone outside of my team. One more thing to your question, Felix, is that it is always really hard to use those 30 minutes to actually meet someone. But what I used to do is in my one-on-ones with my manager, I would say, "Hey, is there anybody else at the company that you think I should meet?" And then they would refer me to someone. I was like, "All right, next 30 minutes that I have in this, say, coffee chat hour or coffee chat 30 minutes, I would put it to meet that person." I would go back to my manager and say, "Oh, I met them. Awesome person. Love the conversation. Is there anybody else?" And that would force me to say that it was kind of like a task so that I could go back to my manager and force myself to prioritize those 30 minutes because I asked my manager for it and I wanted to continue doing that. So sometimes it takes a little bit more than just the power of your will to sacrifice those 30 minutes. So if for you it works to ask your manager or ask your colleagues or someone to be accountable for you, ask for some information and you want to report back, then do it. Prioritization is our day today, and it's always going to be hard to prioritize no matter what you do.
I totally get what you're saying about protecting lunchtime. I'm still figuring out how to do this myself. So I'm going to try and block off my calendar. I don't know why I haven't done it thus far, but I'm going to try that out. Along the topic of what you just mentioned, which is almost like, hey, when you go to like a chat or a coffee chat, try and start a chain reaction right there to kind of have a little bit of a network effect to meet the next person and kickstart the next conversation. So this is very much about once you have sort of that connection in place to start with. Do you find that this has become very difficult or different given the remote working conditions or the hybrid working conditions of today? And would you say that it's been tougher or easier, or are there any tips you'd like to share along that line?
I think what has become tougher is the idea that I am no longer going through the hallways and seeing Akshaya and be like, "Oh, hey, Akshaya, how was the weekend? Let's chat for 5 minutes. Let's go for coffee," and that's it. I think that's what made it harder. But I would say that now that for example, now that we have that, say, free commute time, you're at home, you have some extra time. We usually spend it on doing something different, right? So that could also work as a block half an hour to message someone or do something, which brings me back to some of the advice, right? I think it's maybe thinking about it, I don't know if harder is the right word, but definitely very different from what we were used to in those coffee chats. One thing that I would advise anyone listen to this is that networking is not always having a phone call or having a video call. Networking sometimes is as simple as for whatever reason, maybe I'm too organized and I put it in my calendar, or maybe it was just a spark of illumination. I remember that 6 months ago I spoke with Akshaya, and we had a nice chat. So I'm just gonna reach out and see how she's doing. So I'm gonna send a message to Akshaya over LinkedIn message, email, whatever, and I would just say, hey, how's it going? How's the job? Last time we chatted about X, Y, and Z. I'm just reaching out to get in touch, see what's going on. Sometimes even doing simple things like that, that's still networking. That you don't have to spend 1 hour every single day speaking to someone different. Sometimes networking is literally as simple as that. One of the tips that I was an international student. I'm from Mexico originally, so one of the tips that they would give us when I came to the US was, listen, use the holidays as an excuse. If you live in the US, you will never go wrong with saying, Felix, happy Thanksgiving, man. I hope everything's great. Felix will likely reply, and then you can start a conversation from there, even if you haven't spoken in about 3-6 months, whatever amount of time, right? So using the holidays as an excuse, if you're very lazy to really go deep into networking, it's always a nice tip to remind yourself, this whatever holiday, I'm going to reach out to XYZ people in my network that I talked to in the past and just continue the conversation going. Let me wrap up with one last thing, actually, on this topic. I think that definitely moving to a hybrid or remote world has been tough on, a lot of people. Especially, I have friends who are introverted and who told me, Diego, for me, it's a problem that previously I was at the office, and if somebody would come by, it's like, all right, I'm going to chat. But now I have to be very intentional about, I'm going to go out there and schedule time and send a message. And there's like 20 more steps than just walking to their desk and having coffee. So I think that word intentional, when it comes to networking, we often don't prioritize it in our day to day. We don't prioritize it in our work. But I think it's one of the key things that we can do to make you successful. This podcast, PM Mastermind, is alive because of this network, because Felix started to spread the idea, find the community, network with others, and we are all here because of this network. And it's been, a couple of years now. So that is to say that, yes, things are remote, things are harder, things are, I need to plan ahead, but it pays off. And like Felix, like you were saying earlier, it may not pay off tomorrow, but if you start a relationship today, it's going to pay off in the future for work, for friendship, for businesses, or for building communities like the PM Mastermind.
That's awesome. I just want to add one comment there, because you brought up a really good point about the friction between actually getting on someone else's calendar and needing to be intentional. One thing I really appreciate about Google is we have what's called the Coffee Ninja. And you can essentially go to this site, enter your name, say, how often you want to meet with people, maybe give some disciplines you're interested in meeting, and it just automatically schedules on the frequency you request one-on-ones with people. So it really reduces that friction. I don't know, other companies probably have some similar things, but maybe for folks out there who are introverted, if you have an opportunity to help your team out or build something on the side, maybe consider it. Maybe see if people at your company would be interested in creating something like this to make it easier for everyone to network.
Yeah, I love that Google has this practice. It's definitely something I'll steal. Like Capital One has a culture of what we call meet and greets. Typically in like your first 2 weeks, you'll get like a list of people from your manager and your peers that you're supposed to be meeting with, and you're more or less just booking 30 minutes on people's calendars and just talking to them. And it's something I try to continue as well, but agree with all of your points that it can be difficult, but you really have to be intentional about it. And segueing, Diego, into the last thing that you said, it can be difficult to find those communities offline or online where you can be intentional about networking or try to meet other product managers and learn from them. Do you have any online or offline communities or platforms that you recommend for PMs to network and learn from each other?
Yeah, of course. The PM Mastermind is definitely one of the best ones, I can say. But instead of sharing, a list of communities, I think let me share a few things that you can do to find your community, because there's always going to be the popular communities out there or the ones that are the biggest ones, but not all of them are a great fit for everyone. Sometimes there are general topics of communities and you want something more specific, something more niche. When I think especially probably since COVID, maybe before, or maybe I just noticed at the time, I see that there's been a lot more effort and communities and these waves of content creators, especially in product management, which is awesome. And that means that there's a lot of, more power to the aspiring, current, and already experienced PMs out there. And many times when you see that people are posting about them, or even within the PM Mastermind, people start commenting on each other's posts, you'll sometimes discover by following these people, by commenting, by interacting, by networking with them, that everyone or almost everyone has found special niche communities that are going to be helping them with. Like, so sometimes there are communities about product-led growth, and it's everything about product-led growth communities, and almost no other topic, right? But that maybe is not going to be a great fit for some people. So if you are a product manager who's trying to figure out what kind of community am I interested in, is it more general, more like big communities, like Lenny has its own paid community and it's huge, right? But maybe it's not going to be a great fit if you're looking more for like smaller community interactions. So maybe the PM Mastermind is great for you for all these kind of topics. You need somebody to help you level up. Or maybe you need somebody who's going to help you with, like I said, product market fit or customer discovery. So following creators, it's kind of like the trail, following where people talk about that, following creators that talk about that. Eventually, you're going to end up bumping into either their communities or a community where they belong to. Let me give you an example. One time, so again, I'm from Mexico, so I'm a Latin American, and I help everyone to break into product management with interviews. But then after 2 years of doing that, one day I was like, you know what community I'm actually not helping, or at least not directly, or I'm not super involved with? The Latin American community. Where are my Latinos who want to break into tech? So one day I decided to post on Twitter like, hey, I'm looking for a community for Latin Americans who are struggling to either get into product management or anything about product management. And I got a reply like 5 minutes later, like, oh, we've got Techqueria, and it's thousands of Latinos who are trying to get into tech. And I joined and I started helping people right away. So sometimes all it takes is for you to find out what kind of community you're looking for. So Giant, I know it was not exactly what you were asking of, like a list of communities, but sometimes, at least for me, it has helped a lot more to figure out what kind of community do I want that will help me, and then let me figure out how to get there. Because not everyone has the resources of, paid advertisement or 500,000 subscribers to a newsletter. So sometimes these niche communities are harder to find.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that for a lot of people who are in product management, there's a lot of niches in product management in general. So figuring out how you can actually find those niches online can definitely help you a lot and can help you feel less lonely in your product growth journey.
Absolutely. So switching gears a little bit, one of the main things people want to do when they're networking is find a mentor, right? So maybe go from your experience, Diego. How do you go about seeking mentors from your network? And was it hard to find the right fit?
I think what was really hard to find was, what do I need a mentor for? For example, first I thought, when I was earlier in my career, I was like, oh, I need a principal PM or a director of product or a VP of product to coach me so that I can get there. And then I realized I was so far away from their view that I would talk to my VP at the time. And I was like, that's cool, but it's not actionable. It's generic tips, not because they were bad, but because they had already gone through so many layers and I'm so far away that it was hard to make it actionable, specific to me. So instead of trying to go for, I need someone really, really above my title, I started switching into, okay, what do I need a mentor for? So right now, instead of having one, I have many, and it has taken years to actually build that network. One of the things that I was figuring out is like, all right, I need mentor for my career. Where do I find one? I ended up making a great connection with my former manager from Microsoft. And to this day, we message each other and I ask him questions. And when I had offers after LinkedIn, I was like, dude, I have A and B. Like, what do I do? Which one do I take? Here's A, here's B. I don't know what to do. But of course, just like, going to the doctor sometimes is not good enough to just have one. So I also, through a PM mastermind, through networking, another one of my mentors, he used to be, I think, a director of product at Facebook, and he's now at Reddit. He's, someone that I trust, and I also go to him with career advice. I'm like, I have these questions about my career. I have questions about A and B. What should I do? What should I not do? And that's great. But like I said before, sometimes it's, by accident through networking events like through PM Mastermind. Sometimes it's at work. But the most important thing is that what do you need mentors for? Because then I also need mentors for my content. I need mentors for even just, should I do X, Y, or Z things? Sometimes even as basic as I need a mentor of someone who guides me of things in the US. So when I think of mentorship, it is hard. It is definitely hard because there's paid mentorship that makes it easy, but expensive and time consuming, and sometimes not a great fit. I mentor people. I prefer to call it like paid coaching. And I give the best advice I can, but mentorship takes time. It's another relationship that you need to maintain. It's another thing that you need to build from scratch. So when I think about mentorship, Felix, to your question, it is hard. It takes time, and it's not, in my view, very personal view, it's not something that you go out there and be like, I need a mentor. Let me go and find a mentor for 6 months. It's more like, let me meet people, and one of these meetings is going to click. And then when you feel that click, when you feel that there's a great rapport with that person, and you trust them, and you see that they are in a place where you want to eventually get to, and there's a great potential for a relationship, they can become a mentor. I don't think I've ever, by the way, let me just finish with this. I don't think I've ever told any of my mentors, like, you are officially my mentor. But I think they kind of know, or I've never asked them in any way. It's just I think it puts pressure. I don't know how to call it, but for me, it's always been a great relationship that I just turn it into a mentorship, even if I don't tell them, but I think they're okay with it.
I totally understand what you mean when you say it's actually tough to find the right person for the right thing. And also like make sure like, hey, they're willing to take the time wherever they are in their career to help you with some of like skill sets or anything on your end. I'll definitely say I initially was very much about trying to find the like network and find the perfect mentor who could help me like grow in my career, same as you. And what I learned was, hey, sometimes my mentor doesn't have to actually be a product manager. And especially when I was early in my career where execution, like learning execution was extremely important, it actually helped to find a mentor that was in an adjacent discipline. So it was someone who was an engineering manager, and that actually really helped me understand engineering concerns as I was kind of executing at my role as a product manager. So that actually helped me out quite a lot. And the thing is, mentorship relationships also change over time. And I don't really speak to them as much right now anymore because maybe we don't have very much to talk about currently. But to your point, we still keep in touch. So I think a big part of that is potentially also molding your network to kind of meet your needs, and also like addressing anyone like you're networking with, their needs. Definitely very important. Another kind of area where a lot of people meet other folks in the same discipline is often like conferences or some of these like events that are held by like developer conferences and so on. Are there any that you recommend our community check out for any PMs that are trying to grow their skills, even in specific niches?
Great question. I don't have a perfect answer to that because, for example, the ones that I've tried to go to have been with a lot of the objective of, I want to go there to meet people who are working at great companies that I know today I'm not going to apply, but in the future I may apply because they could be working on something interesting. So let me actually try to go and meet people just for the sake of meeting people. I know it's a weird objective because it was not specifically job, or it was not specifically like, oh, I want to meet the director of product at whatever company. So I always try to look for what is a conference that I can go and I can actually find someone that it's quote unquote easier, or would be easier for me to build a relationship. So I don't think this qualifies as conferences, but what I can say is that I've actually before COVID, and I'm starting to do it again, I would look for events. Sometimes tech companies would organize events. So I've gone to a lot of Latino events where it's people in tech who are Latin Americans. And it's kind of like, come and learn about the company, but also mingle and get to know each other. And I've met some really, really cool people. I think the most interesting in like, networking kind of way that I've met was I met this guy, just to give you the a little bit of the insights of what networking can do. I met this guy who is one of the top PhDs working on the Apple Watch. I couldn't learn more about his job, but he is one of the top guys with like two or I don't know how many PhDs working on the Apple Watch. And at the time of the conference, he told me in secret because again he cannot reveal a lot. But by accident, he was wearing the new Apple Watch. This was before COVID. He was wearing the new Apple Watch and he forgot to take it out, and he didn't want to put it in his pocket because he didn't want to lose it, of course. So he was there and he took me to the side and I was like, oh, I'm gonna tell you, but don't tell anyone. He showed me the new Apple Watch. I forgot which version is already out, but you get to meet a lot of interesting people, and then of course that builds into sort of like a friendship. He referred me to Apple and so on and so forth. So I know there's a lot of conferences specific to, correct me, Felix and team, if I'm wrong, but I think there's the National Black Conference in tech. There's, I maybe like butchering the name. I know there's a big one for tech employment. Product Con is another one that I've seen it online when it was COVID times, and it's a lot of great people to meet. I don't know what else, to be honest, like a list of other conferences. But yeah, I typically try to look for the ones that are smaller where I know I'm going to get to meet cool people. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And love the idea of like trying to find your community. The other thing I'd quickly plug is also trying to find like industry specific conferences. You may not meet as many product managers per se, but Diego, like your chance encounters, like you'll find other people in your field that are subject matter experts, and you can potentially learn a lot as well from them. When we post the video for this, we'll also make sure to plug in some of our favorite conferences. I know we probably don't know what they are off the top of our heads, so we'll try to get some and plug them in the video description here. I think there's also like a bunch of like women in product type conferences as well. I think it's actually called Women in Product. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yes. Yeah. It's Women in Product, and they have a local chapter for a lot of the major cities. And they definitely do have like speakers coming in internationally for niche topics. And they do have a lot that are catered towards kind of people earlier in their product career versus people who are more so trying to move into product leadership roles too. So it's definitely useful to join your local chapter or even the chapter of like a city you're trying to move to. So yeah.
Before we move on too, I just want to double down on one thing Diego said, which was like some of these events hosted by companies. I know sometimes as a PM, especially if you're like already a PM, you get pings from recruiters, you get invited to like, little networking events. I remember like years ago, I got invited to one, I think it might've been hosted by like Amazon or something. Really think twice, right, about attending these things. Even if you're not recruiting, take that phone call with the recruiter, right? Like, go to that recruiting event and just meet and hear about the different projects. I mean, this is how you network, like Diego said. You meet really cool people. You get to learn something new. And so, yeah, I think that's one thing I definitely encourage people. And I was actually quite surprised to hear how many PMs don't do this. They're like, I'm not looking right now, so I just ignore all the recruiters. I just ignore all the events. Like, no, go to some of them, right?
If I can add one more thing quickly here that you mentioned, Felix. I went to a recruitment event by Google, I don't know, before COVID. And I got to meet, PMs, but also recruiters. They messaged me at the time. I was in between jobs, so I actually didn't go through with the interview, but I got the email from the recruiter. And then when I was looking for new jobs after LinkedIn, I was just thinking, what if I, message some of those recruiters? Like, what could happen? I ended up messaging them, and 2 out of 3 replied. So I basically replied over their email that was from 2019. And I was like, hey, we met a couple years ago. Hope everything's doing good, blah, blah, whatever. Hey, I'm looking for, my next gig. Happy to chat. I'm still in PM. Here's, my skills and so forth. 2 out of 3 replied. They moved. One of them moved to a different. They didn't recruit PMs anymore, so they put me in contact with someone else. And long story short, sure, it's a long process. Market is weird, but the point is that I ended up getting contacts for new recruiters at Google because of an email from 2019, because I got it from one of these events that Felix was mentioning.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to the power of community and maintaining kind of some of these soft relationships moving forward in your career. Because the higher up you get kind of up your career ladder, that's really the only way you'll be able to find those job opportunities, more than, applying on Indeed or LinkedIn Jobs or some of those other places as well. So switching gears a little bit, it's actually kind of similar, but still, people always talk about building up a personal brand. Can you speak a little bit more about what that means for you? And can you define like the specific actions you might take in order to build a personal brand? And if you could speak, Diego, about how important is this actually? Like, how important is it to build that brand while you work to network?
To me, I have 3 personal brands that are public. My biggest personal brand that everybody knows about is I'm a content creator. I talk about product management. I talk about, tips on how to break into PM, YouTube, LinkedIn, blah, blah, whatever. Like, that's one personal brand. And that's what most people think a personal brand is. But that is just a way to create content for people who, like me, are passionate about creating content. The second personal brand, which people don't think about it as often as they should, is the work personal brand. Is how do people know you in the company? Are you the kind of person that anyone knows that they can reach out to you and be like, yes, Diego can make it happen, let's go to Diego? Or are you like the person that is like, I need to work with Diego again, please no, save me? So that kind of personal brand is not only going to, of course, affect your job, but also affect your network within your company. And then the third personal brand is on how you help others. I'm going to classify it like that. For example, let's say, Giant, you reach out to me on LinkedIn. We interacted a couple of times. Doesn't matter if I'm a content creator or not, but we maybe, talk every now and then. And if I help you, even as something as simple as like, hey, let me give you, my opinion on your resume. Probably you maybe are going to talk to someone else about how I helped you. Maybe that other person reaches out to me, or if I end up reaching out to that other person, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, you helped my friend Giant. So sure, how can I help you? So that is also part of another brand of how you're helping others, how you're paying it forward, how you are building that community around you. Because it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter how people think you are. If you are not a very nice person, to put it in nice words, then you're going to drive people away from you. And that, going back to the topic of networking, that is going to carry a big weight on your future of your network. Because sure, you may be incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly great at sharing content, but if nobody wants to work with you, nobody wants to help you, then that's not going to take you anywhere really far. So how important is it to build a personal brand? I think that is really important. And you need to think about that. Building a brand is not always, I'm going to publish content. Building a brand is, how do I want people to see me on as I help others, when I'm at work, when I'm interacting in a community like this one with other people. But I think the most important thing, just to wrap that piece up, I think the most important thing is that it also can't be fake. It can't be that I helped Giant once and boom, done. I'm a nice guy. Please, Giant, help me to get a job next time, right? It's not about that. It's about just being yourself and being honestly excited about helping others. Like, sure, I'm not gonna jump, every day that Giant reaches out to me. But if you need help and you reach out, I'll be like, all right, sure. Listen, I don't have time right now. Let's chat in a week. And then next week, I'll be like, all right, now is the time. Let me help you. What can I do for you? Let's work on the problem together. So it has to be authentic. It has to come really from, it's going to sound corny, but it has to come from the heart, because this is not a one-time thing. You're going to network the rest of your career, and you better do something you're comfortable with, but also something you can maintain and something that keeps you honest with yourself. So I think it's very important to build a brand. I also think that building a brand is not just about creating content. It's about how people perceive you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think like kind of the key takeaways I'm hearing is like, be authentic. Don't treat networking just like a task to get ahead in your career or anything like that. And actually focus on building relationships with the people that you meet, because it's like a give and take. Today you help someone, there's a chance you may need them in the future. I totally see that. We do have a question that was also pre-submitted by the PM Mastermind community that we'd love to get your thoughts on. It's an anonymous question this time. And the question is, networking internally is important for visibility, awareness of relevant initiatives, and more. What should you do to build relationships in a global company, especially when you're based out of the headquarters and many of your stakeholders might be available in some of the global offices at different time zones?
One of the things that I really admired from one of my data scientists in Microsoft, 90% of my team was based in Redmond, Washington, and then this person was in Europe. So the time zones were like weird. Every meeting we had, he was the first person to show up with, camera on, always smiling, always. It didn't matter if he was the only one with his camera on, but he was there, and you knew he was there, and he was engaged, and he was taking notes. He would be very respectful of his time and your time, so that if you message him at his 3 a.m, he wouldn't be like, awake and responding. But he would also not send you messages at 3, in your morning. He would schedule everything, and he did all these little details to feel part of the team, integrated, and getting people to get to know him and make sure that he was there. That was on the forming a presence in this virtual environment. The other thing that he did that I really liked when I worked with him was that, yes, I was a product manager on the team, but he never drew a line between I'm the data scientist, you're the PM, and he was more on the attitude of like, hey, what do you need? How can we tackle this together? And he would propose something like, hey, I'm happy to take a very, very late or early call for me. Would you be open to doing an early or late call for you? And kind of having that openness about doing that exchange. I don't know, it was really easy to work with him, and it was almost as if he was with us in Redmond, Washington. So I'm not saying you have to go through a big effort to make things happen as if you were out there. It's more like some of those little details that, first of all, must not be something that you have to sacrifice, but like maybe adjusting some of the way to work, some of the little tips like sending scheduled messages, stuff like that should not affect you personally and professionally, and can make the work be more seamless, if that makes sense. I don't know. At least I saw him execute really well as someone very remote. And I think he's still there and he's thriving. So I don't know. I'm maybe not the expert because I've always been local, but I've seen very few who've done really well, and he was one of those.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Diego, for joining us again. I mean, I think, you shared a lot of gems today. We'll add lots and lots and lots of references to the show notes. Before we wrap up for the evening, we've got a fun rapid fire section. So we're going to take you through some quick questions, just hear, your first response, and we'll close it out. So to start, read versus TV or movie?
Ooh, TV first, movie second.
Okay. And what's the last TV show that you watched that you recommend?
Sweet Tooth on Netflix. Looks like a kid's show. It's about a kid with antlers. It looks like a kid's show. It's not. It's really good.
Okay, that's a good one. I'll have to check that one out. All right. Beach versus mountains?
I love the cold, but I don't like mountains, so beach.
Okay. All right. When's the last time you went to a beach that you'd recommend?
Man, this is a fancy beach. So the last one that I went was in December. I was in Hawaii.
Okay, nice. That's pretty sweet. Okay, so you said you like the cold. So if it's not the mountains, is it a different activity or what?
Yeah, here's the thing. I love the ocean. I
Okay.
love the beach, but I step outside in the sun and I'm melting, and I hate that. So it's like if I'm indoors, like if I'm at home, it should be cold, on the colder side. But I love the ocean, so I can't escape it. And if I go to the
Got
mountain,
it.
it's like, all right, that's the mountain. It's nice, but there's no activity you can do, and you can hike and whatever, but you're not going to hike the mountain 35 times. But you can go to the beach and enter the ocean 35 times, and it's still nice.
Okay, all right, I can see it.
Weird logic,
Okay.
but yeah.
No, it's cool. It's cool. All right, one more. Oh, actually, no, we got two more. Last time you used generative AI tech, and for what?
ChatGPT, can we count that as a? I know it's kind of a hot topic, but I'm trying to think of like there's something deeper with generative AI, but not the reality is like I use
Huh,
ChatGPT a
that
lot.
counts.
I'm one of the $20 subscribers to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a fantastic way to get unstuck. So let me give you an example. This weekend, I'm gonna do for the um, University of Washington. I'm gonna do like a small 30-minute speech on AI product management and diversity and inclusion. And I was like, oh man, I could present so many things about it. So what am I going to do? So I literally went to ChatGPT and said, all right, I'm giving a conference on this, brainstorm 20 ideas on interesting things that I could talk about. And it started giving me examples. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do a lot of examples. All right, let's do that. I don't use it for content generation in the sense that, hey, write this post for me. But it's like, I'm stuck. Brainstorm 10 ideas about XYZ topic. Pretend that you are whatever character, and boom, go. And it gives me ideas to get myself unstuck on something, and then just do it. I don't use it for work because it's blocked PayPal, so I can't use it. But yeah, that's what I use it for. If I'm stuck with any ideas, with anything that I need to do, any big tasks, before trying to spend 20 hours doing it, I just go to ChatGPT. Sorry, it's kind of like the use case that probably a lot of people use. That's why I wanted to do something more interesting with generative AI, but it's actually really useful.
No, you'd be surprised, man. We talk to a lot of PMs, and there's some PMs that haven't even used it yet, right? So I think just hearing more of like how it's being used is always helpful. All right, last one. Favorite product and why?
This is the toughest question. Favorite product and why? Oh man, I'm in trouble. All right. I'm glad that this is not an interview, like a product management interview for a job. But I'm gonna go with TikTok, and it's weird because 2 years ago or 1 year ago, I was like, I hate TikTok. Like it sucks you into the app for like 3 hours. But here's the thing: I've learned so much about whatever topic you want on TikTok, and I've learned it in such a short time frame that I have not learned it using Google or YouTube or anything else. So think about any random topic, whatever it is on your day to day. Even something as simple as the other day I bought a can opener. And I was reading the instructions. I was like, what the heck is this? I don't understand the instructions. I was like, TikTok, model of the can opener, how to use. And there were like at least 20 videos of that. So that helps with that. Then I was thinking of, oh man, I need to write a post about whatever topic. Has somebody talked about it? Oh, let me search for TikTok. 50 videos about it. All right, perfect. Let me watch one and get inspired, and then boom, done. I think, at least to me, I've learned so much from TikTok, but I also need to take breaks because it sucks you right into the product. So I love it and I hate it. But yeah, it's a typical product, but it definitely has helped me learn so much stuff.
Hey man, that's legit. I think a lot of folks talk about the future of search and how TikTok is really uh, grabbing a lot of share there. So it makes perfect sense. All right. Well, that actually wraps us up for the day. But before we close it out, Diego, if you want to share any final thoughts, how people can find you, all that good stuff, take it away.
My biggest advice for anyone who's, interested in just improving your career, improving your personal life, improving your whatever topic you want, networking should be at the top, or maybe in the top 3 in your list. Networking for fun, networking for connections, networking for work, networking for whatever reason you want, but you can't forget about networking. The most important thing about networking as you go and try to achieve your objective, whatever it is, has to be, number 1, being authentic, and number 2, being intentional. If you go and use ChatGPT to say, write a message so that I can reach out to Akshaya, everybody's going to do it. Everybody's probably doing it. That is not going to make you authentic. Akshaya will be like, this is created by a robot, and not pay attention to you. So leverage ChatGPT for ideas, not for networking, but network. If you take one thing away from this conversation, is just go out there and network. And yeah, anybody can reach out to me. I have LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Pick a social media network, and I'm there as PM Diego or PM Diego Granados. You're going to find me there.
And with that, this has been another great session with the PM Mastermind, a community for product managers to get advice, share advice, and build relationships. We look forward to the next chat. See you next time. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Product Management Mastermind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcasting platform. And remember to leave us a rating and review so that we can reach more listeners. We appreciate your support.